For generations, veterans have answered the call, some paying the ultimate sacrifice to maintain what many of us take for granted. This is Legacy Generations, and these are their stories.
That even though no matter how bad it's been, I'd go back and do it all over again because of the guys that were next to me.
Damn right.
And so because we would go back and do it again with the guys that were next to us, tell me about those guys. Tell me about some guys that you served with that you would walk through hell's fire and go through all of that hell and torment and travesty again, just to be next to again.
Any of them. Any fucking one of them.
Any specific one?
I just keep going one after another after another. I mean, the guys that, of course, gave the ultimate sacrifice. Any fucking one of them. Trost, Mesmer, Ingram. I mean, Moon. I mean, you got Lee. Just every freaking one of them. My leader, he was NEAT 5 at that time. Drew Preston. Guy was a character. He was the the Fister NCOIC in Baker Company, and he and I were a team. I mean, hell, I learned a lot from him. Our FSO Ojeda, he's out in Virginia. Our first sergeant, Rodriguez, I mean, that guy could not end a sentence without saying fuck at least once, but he got the point across. I mean, every leader has their niche. His word was crutch, or whatever you want to call it, was the term fuck. I mean, you got Smitty Jennings. Yeah, he just recently lost his life.
What do you mean he just recently lost his life?
He passed away not too long ago. He's out in New York. Without even going into too many details, he's one of the guys that he and I would just talk to via social media every now and again. And no matter what, we'd always somehow talk. You got Yeager, you got Temples, you got Claypool, you got Feralis. I mean, the list goes on and on. Any one of those guys, I mean, they're always on my mind. At least somebody is from our time. With the Currie's, with the Baker Company, even to this day. I mean, the last guy I talked to was Feralis. He's a first sergeant now with the 82nd. Let me think here. He should be home right now. I got to reach out to him again, but he was just deployed again as a first sergeant in the 82nd. So damn proud of him, and real good guy, and I would go to hell and back for any of those guys, no matter what.
That's a brotherhood that's bonded literally through fire, that lasts a lifetime, and it's tough to be separated and tough to not be connected on a daily basis, and I'm sure they appreciate you the same. I'm sure if they were sitting in your seat, your name would come up and they would say, oh, yep, David was my man, he was my brother, and So that's a bond that spans international. That's through a course of services. It doesn't matter what branch of service you're in. That service is huge.
Yep. It affects us all. It affects us all differently. Like I said, not everybody that walks in walks out the same person. Especially going through shit like we've been going through.
So speaking of shit that we've been going through, what's some advice that you would leave for the current generation coming into the military, the Army specifically, and future generations? So say the next generation, what's some advice that you would give to them?
Never, ever give up on your brother or sister in arm. Ever. I mean, everybody fights their own demons. Everybody fights it a little differently, and it affects everybody differently. Don't ever fucking discard anybody and push them to the side because you think you know better.
You bring up a good point that not discarding soldiers or service members, veterans, no matter what generation that they come into or that they belong to, is huge. We have an epidemic with the 22 soldiers a day committing suicide. Yes. And over the course of the 20 years that I've served and the years that you've served, we've lost several very good soldiers to suicide. And that's, to me, that's the biggest combat loss that I can't fathom. And it bothers me day in and day out that we are losing that many soldiers. And I'm encouraged by hearing your story and hearing your experiences and the connection that you have with your brothers in arms from the past, and staying connected to be able to get through and make sure you're doing those battle buddy checks and those brother checks that, hey, are you doing good? How's your head? That's actually one of the first questions I always ask my brothers and sisters is, how's your head? Because if asking that question, that gives me an insight as to what they're thinking, because I don't want to lose any more brothers and sisters to suicide. And so how do you think that having that connection with the brothers that you've served with, the people that you've served with in the past, having that connection has aided in minimizing that suicide rate of 22 a day?
The help is out there. Help is out there. If you're struggling with something, everybody struggles it differently. If you see it, and it's not only affecting you, but you can see it starting affecting your loved ones, don't be hard-headed about it. Go talk to somebody. Go talk to a friend. Go talk to somebody professional. Do something. Don't let it eat you away. Ever. And if it ever gets to a point where you can't live with it, then that right there would be the fucking point of no return, where you're like, I'm gonna talk to somebody. I'm gonna go reach out to a friend, whatever, whoever that may be, do it. Because the help is out there. And those brothers and sisters out there that are struggling with this, absolutely, go and get it. Go and get that help. Talk to somebody, do what you gotta do to help get through it. Whatever our brother or sister is going through.
What's some things that you personally do, whether it's through connection with past brothers that you've served with, family, whatever, what are some things that help you get through day to day with the baggage that you carry? Because you're carrying a lot of baggage, brother.
Well, the good memories is something I dwell on more than the bad. That's number one for me. I've learned in the past, talking with certain people, certain breathing exercising, listening to certain types of music, that just helps me kind of fade away. Just kind of let me mellow down, and just kind of settle myself down a little bit. That's what does it for me personally. Keep myself busy. That's my number one thing. I try to keep myself busy, even if I'm not doing something physically. I like to think of what I'm going to do next, whether it be a project, whether it be some of my family. Currently, my niche is hockey. I coach it. I play it. Hell, my son, he has embraced hockey to a level I never expected. I mean, he absolutely loves it. Eats, drinks, everything hockey. He cannot wait to get back on the ice, and I feel the same way. To me, focusing on that, I mean, what else could there be? I mean, as a father would understand that. To do something with your kid like that, to bond with your child like that. And my little girl, I mean, she's very artistic. She loves her gymnastics, getting attention from mom and dad. She's all about it. It's just little stuff like that that I try to focus on a little bit more, because today she's asking for a little attention, and then tomorrow I'm halfway around the world wishing I could be there to focus on that.
So, yeah, today you're able to wrap your arms around your little girl and hug and squeeze your son. You've got a deployment coming up. What are some things that you're doing to prepare them for, hey, Tata's not going to be around for a while?
Yeah.
Pardon my Polish, but
yeah, no, that's great. I'm happy you're bringing it up. It's once I found out I was deploying, I of course talked it over with my wife, and it's something that me and her came up kind of with the game plan to kind of start, like, dropping the seeds, like, hey, Tata, dad in Polish, is going to be gone for a while. Hey, this is where he's going. Hey, it's going to be this long. Excuse me. Going on some simple trip to Poland for a couple weeks. Then get back and kind of like prepare him. Like, hey, that was only 2 weeks. You know that I'm going to be gone for a long, long time. So, get them prepared. And kids are pretty resilient. People don't realize that. I try not to talk about the adult stuff, about what we go through, what actually goes on over there. I kind of downplay it a little bit. So you don't want to worry your child. You definitely don't. So, or the spouse as well. So you talk about it, just keep talking about it, just to make sure they are as mentally prepared for it as much as possible, and then guide them through it while you're gone. That's my approach. Is it the right approach? I don't know, but it's working.
So let's look at this from your Ranger background perspective, and we're gonna look at the suicide rates right now. And do you think that what the Rangers and their mentality and that can do, never quit attitude that they've instilled in you, do you think that that's really a foundation in which you're able to deal with your grief and move forward or assist other soldiers with suicide?
I don't care if you're 11 Bravo, Johnny Hero Ranger, SF, SEAL, whatever, or the cook in the back of the kitchen. If you're struggling, you're struggling. Everybody's human at the end of the day. You're not big enough, you're not small enough to get the proper help that you need. So, to me, to that brother or sister who is struggling through whatever, don't ever fucking say to yourself, no, I'm not good enough because of A, B, C. You're struggling. Go out there and talk to somebody. Don't ever fucking sit back and wait.
So, since you've mentioned a few names of people that have really stuck out with you, some that you've lost.
Yep.
Explain to me and help me know who those soldiers are. Because one of our missions, actually one of our biggest missions, is to never forget the service and the sacrifice of those that came before us. Yeah. And so, you've mentioned through this conversation several names of people that you've known that are no longer with us. And our mission is to get to know them, to share their legacy and their memory. And so I want to hear from you what that legacy and those memories are, and get to know who they are.
I'll go randomly. And Mesmer is the guy that always is in my mind. Nick Mesmer, he was from Ohio. He was a kid that was strong. I mean, he didn't look like he was built, he was bulky, but he was a lot stronger than he looked. Like, I'd go lift with him, because back then I would lift all the time, and I'd go lift with him, and he would just smoke me in the amount of weights that he would lift. It just absolutely shocked me. Wasn't very loud. He was just a real. I remember just a good kid from Ohio, and I remember just like I said, just talking about taking his high school sweetheart, going to see the ocean, going back home. We started to bond there, like I said, towards the end, before he passed away. And I only wish I could have continued that with him. The staff sergeant, Thor Ingram, he joined our unit kind of in the middle of our deployment. It wasn't necessarily in the middle, but he joined up with us. And one thing I remember talking with him was cars. He was a really big car guy. I like muscle cars. He likes muscle cars, but the one thing we kind of found common ground on is we both really liked the Trans Am, the Pontiac Trans Am, and especially the last series that was made. And the one thing we agreed on everything about the car except color. For whatever reason, in his mind, it was a car, especially a muscle car, needs to be a solid color: white, black, red, something like that. And he couldn't get over the fact that I love the color of Sunset Orange Metallic, which I have that same car, exact car, and it's just something that, just another connection I have with that guy. I remember him being from Pittsburgh, and I remember just giving shit to each other. He was a good-hearted leader, and again, I only wish I had more time with him. Another guy, Sam Lee, he was a young Asian kid from LA. He was probably skinny as hell. He was probably, I don't know, like 5'4" or something. He was a small guy. But he was always cracking jokes. He was always trying to make something funny. Enjoyed hanging out. And again, it's the war took him too early. Some of the other guys, I just thinking randomly. Jennings, he was a big guy. He was very intelligent. I remember he would explain things in a way which would make sense. He could I don't know, make something completely off topic where maybe you and I absolutely don't agree, but he would make sense into why it would be a good idea. He was just a smart guy, a good family man that lived out in New York. Moon was a Korean kid that, I don't know, he was just hitting everything right, as he cared enough about the soldier. He did everything you'd expect of an NCO, and he was coming up to be a phenomenal NCO. And he and I just remember we would always give each other shit, because me as a fister, him as 11 Bravo, we'd always give each other shit. But at the end of the day, I remember we would hug it out, just because we knew we were just bullshitting with each other and just looked up to each other. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I could keep going. I mean, the list can go on, but just those guys right there, just off the top of my head, absolutely love and miss every one of them.
What's something that you would want their families to know? You know, obviously with some of the missions that we do with Legacy Generations with the Gold Stars, the details of the deaths, those things, we don't want to dive into those because they're the healing process. But there are certain stories that we have that the families may not have ever heard before. So do you have any stories that you would share, or you're willing to share, that the families may not have heard, that would put a smile on their face and let them know, hey, it wasn't all in vain. There was a purpose. My son or daughter had friends that really connected, and there was that true brotherhood.
I just keep a lot of stuff. I keep internal, and that's just me. I don't share a lot of stuff. It's not who I am. The stuff I do share, it just takes a while for me to do.
If you had an opportunity to address some of those family members now, what would you want them to know, and what would you want to say to them about your brother that is no longer with us?
Well, what else can I say that I didn't already say about any of them? I'm sitting here, and I don't want to sound like a broken record. I fucking loved every one of those guys, every fucking one of them. We had our own connection in some way, shape, or form, whether that be through cars with Thor. Nick is just talking about what we're gonna do when we get home. With Moon, just talking about giving each other shit because we're two different MOSs. Lee, just happy going guy. I mean, he was the type of guy that had no problem making fun of himself, you know? When we're talking about just a group of us about what we're gonna do, and he's just kind of there on the side, and we didn't include him. He would kind of throw a comment like, "Oh, no fun for fellow yellow," because he was Korean, you know. Just little stuff like that. He just cracked me up. I talking to a family member or a mother or a wife, I don't know how I would do that. I don't know what I could say that I haven't said already about those guys. I would just tell them, any one of them, fucking each and every one of us loved those guys like a brother. And there's nothing that we would do to bring any of them back. Just to have one more beer, one more shot, one more card game. And their memory lives on and is not forgotten, and will not be forgotten because of the brotherhood that we had.
So what's some ways that you personally honor, whether it's, leaving a beer or having a beer on a certain day for your guys? What's some things that helps you get through the day and remember them? I know that was a complex question.
No, I got what you're getting at, and it's just recently being Memorial Day weekend. I remember just sitting there thinking about it on my back porch. I was just sitting there alone, and I was just kind of in my mind quietly reminiscing about all those guys. Yeah, with the 506, I was thinking about Nick, Mesmer, Thoringer. I was thinking about Jennings. I was thinking about Lee. I was thinking about just everybody with the Curries. And I remember just looking up in the sky and just giving them a little cheers. I don't talk about them enough. I don't. And like I said, I'm a very internal person. I keep a lot of things to myself. I know that I need to reach out to their loved ones. I guess I don't know how to do it yet. It's just not something that is easy for me. But they are always in my mind. They're always in my heart. And there's no way on God's green earth I'll ever forget any of them.
You're from Polish background, moved to the United States. You were raised in the United States, Chicago area, very strong Polish background area. And one day you decide, hey, I'm going to leave college, I'm going to join the military. Why the Army, and why the MOS, or the job that you chose?
Well, the Army, it basically came down to the Army or the Air Force for me. And I glanced at the other branches of the military. I never had a real interest in joining any of them, just because it coming down to a couple things. One, when I was a kid, not only did I love playing soldier, but I really was into planes, and I wanted to become a pilot. And the one thing my parents always told me I had to be really good at to be a pilot is the one subject I absolutely despised: math. So I kind of went away from that dream, and it just came down to basically following in the family tradition of being in the Army, being a soldier. I'm like, my dad was in the Army, my grandparents were in the Army, and I'm like, I'm gonna join the Army. That was at the end of the day, that was the only real choice for me. So when I went to the recruiter and took the ASVAB and then sat down and went over the jobs, they're like, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to jump out of a plane." And they tell me, "Well, you go 11 Bravo, you might jump out of a plane." I'm like, "Might?" I'm like, "No." And I'm like, "What are the jobs that I could get?" And they put a laundry list of jobs in front of me, and it basically came down to 3 jobs because I wanted to do something different, something interesting, but I didn't know what. It was Code Breaker. It was 13 Fox, Forward Observer, and I believe the position was called linebacker. I don't think it exists anymore, where you sit on top of a tank. And I don't know, it just as a civilian at that time, I thought about it. I'm like, they tell me, well, Code Breaker, you would sit behind a computer for the first year and a half or 2 years and try to figure everything out. That just sounded terrible. Sit behind a computer all day? Are you kidding me? I'm like, I do not want to sit. I want to go out. I want to move around. I want to do stuff. So then I thought about between being a fister and being a tanker, and just the idea of sitting on top of the tank and doing all that stuff was really, really cool for me, but they kept telling me I'd have to sit on top of the tank, and I didn't really understand that. So to me, it was like, I don't want to be on top of the tank all fucking day. And the idea, and then it just came down to being a fister, where you could call in artillery and see what you're actually shooting at from a distance. It just sounded really cool to me, something I thought I'd really enjoy, being outside like that. Kind of in front of the flight. It just made most sense for me, so I told them I'd go with being a fister. So I became a fister. I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma in November of '03 and started my OSUT training to become an artilleryman.
Is that where you did your basic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Fort Sill, Oklahoma. I didn't know what to expect. I just remember it was going to be in November. And of course, for Chicago, that's a hell of a winter. And I thought, that's right by Texas. I'm like, it should be pretty warm. Man, I was wrong. It was colder than shit. And they had this new training idea where we would be out in the field majority of the basic training. So we were out in the field just learning how to sleep in the mud, how to stay warm. I mean, it was good training. I'm not complaining, other than being in the cold. But yeah, that's where I started my journey with the military.
That's a typical military answer. Embrace the suck. As much as it's cold or wet or muddy, those are the memories that we cherish the most. Yep. And that's what makes us the military, and that continues on, because the good days, yeah, we get it, but we always cherish the days that we were the coldest, the wettest, the muddiest, the most miserable days. Those are the days that we go, we proverbial pound our chest, say, yeah, I made it through those days, and I enjoyed those days. So you're currently serving, and then you come across a veteran, say, of the Korean War, yep. And you start to just have those interactions with them, and all of a sudden now it's, I have this brotherhood that spans generations, and you have that common thread of the warrior spirit between those two. How does that make you feel, and how do you connect with them, and what does that do for you to know that you share that common bond?
Running into guys like that, and I say guys because it's mainly guys that I've run into that have served in the past in some capacity. It just feels good to know that it's kind of like, okay, I'm not the only one, because in the beginning it almost feels like you're the only one, but the more we talk about it, the more we give shit to each other, the more we're like, okay, I understand where you're coming from. Because outsiders looking in, they don't get it. They look at some of the stuff we say, some of the stuff we do, and they're like, what is the matter with these people? there's nothing ill will about anything that a lot of these veterans that talk about the stuff. There's no ill will behind it. You know, there's no nobody's trying to put somebody down. It's just the way the military mentality is. It's really dark for some people, but knowing that I could talk with a guy that served in the Navy that was in Desert Storm for whatever reason, for us to give each other shit, you know, that kind of builds that camaraderie moving on down the line. Because even though we didn't serve there together, we still served in some way, shape, or form. So we kind of have a better understanding of who or what we are.
It's funny that you bring that up, because there's some Vietnam vets that I associate with, and being a part of the American Legion, and there was a Memorial Day. We'd all had gone out and put up flags or whatever, and there was a Vietnam vet that was walking up, and as soon as I saw him, immediately it was like, hey, you know, and my daughter's like, you don't like him? What's wrong? And I'm like, no, that's just the veteran humor. And we absolutely, I love him like a brother. I love him even though he served in Vietnam and I served in Afghanistan. It's funny that we have that camaraderie that spans generations and branches and whatever. So again, I just can't thank you enough. And brother, I just want you to know, we're here for you. I'm personally here for you, but as Legacy Generations, we are here for you and all veterans, that no matter what generation you served, whether it was in conflict or in peacetime, we're here to hear the stories. We're here to help with the healing process. We're here to help the families remember the service members that have gone before us. We're here in whatever capacity we can serve. And so again, veteran to veteran, brother to brother, I just thank you for opening up. I thank you for sharing some very dark corners of your mind and your memories. And there's nothing that I wouldn't do, because you're a brother and you're a vet, I wouldn't do for you. And that's not just because I know you personally, but because of the fact that we've chewed the same dirt, we've been there, we've done that, and I appreciate your service. I thank you for your service. I thank you for everything that you've done for this country and continue to do for this country. And if there's ever anything that we can do for you, whether just a phone call or a text message, just don't ever forget that we're here. We're willing to take that phone call, that text message, and talk it out and listen, because ultimately that's our mission, is that healing process, to get our veterans, minimize that 22 a day to get it to 0. Yep. To get the guys that are struggling with PTSD, get them to open up as you have done. Yep. And if there's one thing that I can tell you right now, is you're not alone. Don't carry the weight. Don't carry the weight all by yourself. Give each one of the brothers, each one of the sisters that have been there, that understand what you're going through, give them a little bit of the weight. Share with them. Because I know with your wife, she probably is not going to understand. Some of your friends are not going to understand, but we're going to understand. And so again, I just want to encourage you to spread that weight across as many of your brothers and sisters in arms as possible, and let them carry it. And then as they share with you, you're carrying a little bit of their weight. and you're gonna, as a ranger does, you're going to carry them, because no soldier left behind, no ranger left behind. However you want to look at it, we're going to carry that through and reach the finish line. Yeah. So again, you have no idea. I've known you for a few years. There's so much of David that I've learned today. The respect of David, the person, has grown exponentially. And I'm here for you, brother. I'm here night or day. If you need to call me, text me, whatever, do it. And it's not just for the video series. It's because of the fact that I'm here for you.
And I always knew that. I always knew that about you. It's not the first time you've told me that, and I'll tell you, like you told me, I'm same way. For you, for anybody, I don't give a shit. Don't ever fucking discard yourself or anybody else.
Yeah.
All right.
So, I thank you. I love you, brother.
Love you too.